Welcome into the LSU Sports Insider Podcast. Today is Thursday, November the 13th. I'm Zach Ewing, joined today by Koki Riley and Reed Darcy, two of the Advocate's writers covering LSU sports. And I didn't even change the first slide we have on the screen here. I'm just going to keep it up as the LSU coaching search turns. That's just going to be the segment now. If you want to sponsor the segment, let us know. It's our daytime TV soap opera. What's going on with the LSU coaching search. And so
all it's missing, Zach, is Stephen A. Smith to randomly pop up once every 10 episodes.
Right. Your sports soap opera crossover. Perfect. Yeah. So when Rab and Wilson and I were talking on Monday, the breaking news was that Brian Kelly was basically telling LSU he wanted his full buyout, or was at least going to fight for as big of a settlement as he could get. And at that time, we did not yet know, but we did hint at the fact that this could become uglier. And later that day, it did. Brian Kelly is now having to sue LSU to get his full buyout, or at least get the settlement that he wants. And LSU, in turn, has basically said, well, we haven't even technically fired you yet, and we're going to attempt to fire you for cause. This is just getting messy.
Didn't you say, Zach, last week you wanted LSU to have a quiet week in the coaching search?
I don't know if I wanted it. I expected it maybe, but that was stupid.
LSU would want to have a quiet week. They should want to go through a week without any headlines, without any kind of embarrassing stories out there. And obviously they didn't. It didn't work out. And this one is a little more confusing, I think, than most stories. It's just like the whole crux of it is, when was Brian Kelly fired? How was he fired? Who fired him? Did the person who fired him have the authority to fire him? It's a lot of in the weeds kind of legality issues that we don't can't really parse the legalities of, but it's still just another week, another series of controversies, another series of stories that affects the perception, Koki, of the LSU job and the coaching search, and what exactly kind of coach LSU can hire.
They haven't sort of risked the reputation of this job enough. They want to instead play a giant game of chicken with Brian Kelly to see who cracks first, and when it comes to negotiating this buyout, because that's all this is, right? Like, LSU wants to see if they can get away with paying less while offering up the chance for Brian Kelly not to have to pursue another job, right? That mitigation clause. And then Brian Kelly's trying to see how much money can he get while still getting that mitigation clause. And right now, Brian Kelly has all the leverage, and LSU's just trying to see if they can get Brian Kelly to crack. That's basically what it is. And then it's not the LSU side that's leaking all this information. It's Kelly's lawyers, and I feel like I can say that confidently because if you're Kelly's lawyers or any lawyer in that sort of situation, that's what you do. In other legal situations that I've covered and that we've covered, like the lawyers on the offensive are the ones emailing you stuff like this. So that's just kind of where we're at right now. And for LSU, I just pay the guy. Like, I don't understand why you have to keep on lowballing everything, because you're not going to have to, just the mitigation clause alone is enough for you not to pay the $54 million. Like, 40 is pretty good settlement, in my opinion, or even 45, and yet they're not going to, they haven't gotten close to that.
But what if he doesn't get another job? Then LSU's going to be on the hook. Say they have to pay the full buyout. LSU's going to be paying him.
I don't think Brian Kelly wants to get another job. That's why he's probably willing to take less money. That's my guess.
I think so. So this is a giant game of chicken.
Yeah.
We're going to sue you if you don't pay the full buyout. And LSU in turn is saying, well, we're going to try to get you fired for cause and give you nothing if you don't take our deal.
Right.
And whoever blinks first is going to wind up with less money or pay more money than they wanted to. Unfortunately for LSU, like Brian Kelly, to me, unless he's got some skeleton in the closet where he's afraid that he could be fired for cause, which to me, based on his actions, seems unlikely. Because if you had that skeleton in the closet, you probably take the $30 million and walk away.
Yeah.
You wouldn't have even gone this far. So that to me says Brian Kelly's side is much more willing to play chicken than LSU should be. because LSU's reputation is being hurt. Their standing with prospective candidates is being hurt. And, basically, like, as you said, Koki, at some point you just have to say, okay, we'll pay you. Please go away. Let us move on.
Unless Verge Osbury is telling the candidates something that the public doesn't know and that we don't know about this job or the chaos at LSU or the lack of chaos at LSU, then this is definitely hurting the coaching
It's important
search.
to point out that we're only getting one side of the story, and that's the side of Brian Kelly and his lawyers, right? Nobody from LSU has commented on this case. Nobody has, we don't have...
Nobody will.
And nobody will. We don't have any kind of documents from the LSU side, so we're only getting the Brian Kelly side of the story, and what Brian Kelly is saying is that LSU fired him, and then LSU is coming back and telling him that, no, we didn't actually fire you when you fired you, and now we're formally firing you now, 2.5 weeks later after they did it. I think, whether or not this has any bearing over the coaching search and how LSU goes about trying to find the next guy, it still affects the perception of the coaching search. And I think that in coaching searches like this, perception matters, because the coaches out there, the agents out there, they're not privy to the nuts and bolts of the LSU coaching search and what's happening inside that athletic department. They're seeing the same things that we're seeing, and they're seeing the same things that we're reading. So they are perceiving this coaching search and this situation at LSU from an outside perspective, and that affects their willingness to negotiate with LSU and accept their terms. If LSU is trying to get a coach on a more incentive-based contract, for instance, they're not giving themselves leverage here by making themselves look like a mess and all these sort of
by being cheap
games of chicken they're playing.
Yeah.
And I thought Rab made a good point that they're saying, hey, if for other coaches out there, hey, we're gonna fight to not give you the amount that we guaranteed you in this contract, then that's a red flag for the coaches who are trying to look at this job.
Yeah, and that's why if you're Brian Kelly, it is worth it to sit and get the best deal possible, even if you feel like it's a hit to your reputation. Because as you said, Koki, Brian Kelly is in his 60s. He may never coach. He may never want to coach again. He might be willing to just walk away. LSU, on the other hand, has a lot to lose here, and so that's where I see this ending, is eventually LSU just blinks. Maybe they get a slightly better deal in the end, but you have to ask, is that worth all this trouble and all this, potential damage to your reputation?
No, that's the miscalculation they're having right now. Like this, I don't think they understand how much this is hurting their reputation and their standing nationally, and that's what kind of matters when you're, looking for a new football coach. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. It's silly.
Yeah, well, maybe LSU will get a better deal. You will definitely get a good deal if you go to Jerry Lane Cadillac, the sponsor of the LSU Sports Insider. You can command the road in a Cadillac, where luxury, power, and presence come together. Experience it today at Jerry Lane Cadillac. And the one thing that kind of gives me pause, like, why would LSU do this? Don't they know that if you're Lane Kiffin or you're Kenny Dillingham or you're Eli Drinkwitz or you're Jeff Brom, who's going to get an extension, it looks like, at Louisville, or Brent Key, like, these guys are all looking at this job and being like, why do I want to be part of that circus? Mm-hmm. Maybe LSU has an ace up its sleeve, guys. And that's the other part of this as we kind of move into the coaching search aspect of it. And that is that there is a new betting favorite to be the LSU coach. It is a name we've talked about since the beginning, but we talked about him as a long shot. And that is right. Nick Saban is now the favorite to be LSU's next coach. Now, just because that is in the betting market means nothing. You can find old coaching odds from years past, searches past, that were like Brian Kelly wasn't even on the odds board the last time LSU hired a coach. And that's just one example. This happens all the time. But it does say somebody somewhere thinks this is realistic.
How?
Somebody with money thinks it's realistic.
Okay. Coaching searches, consider everything, believe nothing, but I don't think this is going to happen. I don't anticipate that Nick Saban is going to come back to LSU to coach.
I mean, that would make our jobs more interesting.
It sure would, but I'm
rooting for it for that and on that perspective alone. But
why would he do that? I don't understand. I don't see that. You saw the video of him on his recliner under the blanket, when Miss Terry's and his family's singing happy birthday to him.
Sit up.
Like that doesn't look like a guy who wants to be dealing with the transfer portal and dealing with agents of players and trying to build a team and dealing with college kids again. I think he's pretty happy with his lot in life right now. So if I'm him, I'm not taking on another stressful job at age 70, 74. How old is he? Like I think it's a pretty distant possibility. And on top of that, Verge Osbury has already said publicly that I think he told Matt Moscona that Nick Saban doesn't have any interest in coaching again. So I'm not sure where this is coming from.
Which is exactly what you would say if you were trying to pull the ace out of your sleeve. I don't know that it's realistic either. I will say it would make LSU's actions make a lot more sense in regards to Brian Kelly if they already sort of had this backroom deal with Nick Saban. I mean, and that's...
If they had a backroom deal with Nick Saban,
why wouldn't you just announce it? Unless Nick Saban wants to get through the season of College Game Day or some contract with ESPN and then say, okay, in December I'll announce it. I don't know, though, man. Like, this would be the home run of all home runs if you could hit it. Okay? Nick Saban's final game coaching LSU was the Capital One Bowl, New Year's Day 2005, 30-25 loss to Iowa. What a bum. How old were you guys on January 1st, 2005?
I was 4.
I was 6.
Yeah, so I think I actually remember this game. I'm a lot older than you are, but I was 20. So we're all much older than that now. Notably, Nick Saban is also much older than that now. Can you imagine the roar in Tiger Stadium for the first home game next year if Nick Saban is your head coach? I mean... Probably unlike anything we've ever heard at a stadium that has had plenty of
It would
magic
be exciting. It would be interesting. It would be like must-see theater for months and months and months.
Would it work? Leaving aside how realistic it is, would it work?
Yes. He's the greatest coach ever.
It would work. He would not fail and go 7-5. He would not go 8-4.
I can't see that. I can't see a world where he goes worse than 9-3.
Nick Saban doesn't do that. So, yeah, if you can...
He's the greatest coach of all time, Zach. He's going to do better than 8-4.
I don't disagree with you. I'm just asking the question. The counter argument to all that would be this is a new era of college football. The NIL.
Yeah. That's the reason why he might not go 12-0
every single year.
Yeah.
That's the reason he left. That's the other part of this,
that's
right?
Also,
that is
problem,
highly thought of as the reason why he said, you know what, I'm not doing this
So
anymore.
why would he dive back in?
Correct.
Well... But we know a few things to counter that. Like they're real counterpoints. One, he loved coaching here. One of his greatest regrets was leaving here for the Dolphins. And two, if there's a job, if there's a job in the country besides the Alabama job opening up, this is the job he would take.
But
theoretically,
he still has this ceremonial ambassador role with Alabama. He still goes to most of the Alabama home games. He still has his crimson blazer that he wears around. He still does College Game Day in the morning, and then if he can make it, flies down to Tuscaloosa for the games to watch them in his suite with Miss Terry. I just think that this is not really on the table, and I hesitate saying that because maybe I look stupid at the end of this, but I just don't think that he is somebody that is a candidate for this job.
Counter, at the Alabama game, Saban was talking with Verge Osbury and the new president in one of the suites. Or like they walked through. You have to walk through the press box at Alabama to get to the suites, and they were all walking together to go to the suites.
That could mean.
It means
Terry
nothing. But I'm just making a counterpoint to his suite thing.
All right, I
don't actually believe this. I'm just playing devil's advocate. Yeah.
Give me a percentage chance that this happens. Nick Saban to LSU. Is it 0? Is it 2? Is it what percentage are you putting on it?
3.
3%. What about you, Reed?
0.05%.
Wow.
I'm giving it 5%, man.
No.
Okay.
1 out of 20 times, I'm giving it 5%.
I respect it. I thought about 5%, and I'm like, it's a little high for me.
It's not high, but I don't think it's completely impossible.
I agree with that. I agree with that completely. Yeah.
But I will say this, based on everything else we've said, assuming it's not Nick Saban, Lane Kiffin had some interesting comments this week. Did y'all see that? He was asked very generally, what do you look for in a job? And his answer was such that it made me think he's thinking about leaving Ole Miss. He said, now, whether that's for LSU
what
or
did he
Florida,
say?
he basically said, you look for the first thing you look for in this day and age is NIL budget, but then he also mentioned the size of the stadium, I believe, and he mentioned the recruiting area that you're in. I mean, these things point to, like, Ole Miss does not have the advantage in those areas.
No, these things point to the New York Giants. That's what they
they point to
kidding.
LSU or Florida to me.
I'm jealous. It's a joke. But
Yeah.
like, what if we go through this whole brouhaha and the Giants hire him?
It'd be pretty funny.
It'd be really funny.
But I guess my point is he kind of left the door open to crack, because the way you could answer that question if you're Lane Kiffin is, what I look for in a job is everything I've got here in Oxford. That's that's how you answer that job if you want to just shut the door.
I tend to take everything he says with a grain of salt, just because he loves trolling people and he loves joking around. So maybe that's a part of it. I just think with Lane, one, it's going to take a giant contract, fully guaranteed, that he's not doing any of the incentive business. And two, you're going to have to wait a long time to hire him. He'll be playing into January most likely. So it just comes down to practical reasons why LSU and Florida, they can go after him all they want, but it just might not work out, from a practical standpoint. So
I think the most likely thing for Lane Kiffin is that he goes to Florida. I think Florida will wait for him. I think the second most likely is that he stays at Ole Miss. I think LSU is a pretty distant third.
I agree. I think to get to who's the most likely to take this job, which was the first question you kind of asked.
If it's not Saban,
then who is it?
You've now got to go to a Kenny Dillingham, a Brent Key, an Eli Drinkwitz,
But I don't feel good about
John Sumrall, and convince them that, hey, this 3-ring circus is not as bad as it looks, and you're going to succeed.
Do either of you guys feel confident in any of those names Zach just mentioned as coming here? I don't feel confident in any of them.
No, I don't feel confident. I don't feel confident in anybody. If you give me a name out there, like there's no names I feel confident in right now. I think there's a lot of certainty, and what we're seeing is that a lot of these guys are getting extensions. Kurt Signetti got an extension to pull out of the Penn State job. Rhett Lashley at SMU got an extension. Jeff Brom's working on an extension. I believe Kenny Dillingham told Arizona State reportedly that he wasn't going anywhere. So like a lot of these schools.
Yeah, that report, I don't really. I mean, it's probably true, but what, does it mean anything else other than a
point,
press
Matt Rule
conference
got an
thing?
extension in Nebraska. It is happening everywhere.
It's like these coaches and these programs, I think, because the nature of the sport has changed and it's a little more open to more schools now. I think schools are realizing, like, hey, if you want to keep your coach, if you want to keep things rolling, just pay up and don't let the big schools poach the coach that you really like. I didn't mean to. I didn't mean to rhyme there, but don't let these big schools swoop in. I think the playing field is a little more level now, and that hurts a program like LSU that used to be able to just take whoever they want out of the job. Probably.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and Summerall makes the most sense, but then you look at the rest of the pool and you're like, well, Auburn makes more sense. So I think he's going to go to Auburn. And I think Lane Kiffin is either going to go to Florida or stay at Ole Miss. And then everything else, I don't know. Like, I'm just as clueless with the Penn State job, too.
LSU is a better job than Auburn.
I mean, that's true, but he has more connections with Auburn than he does with LSU. And Auburn doesn't have a circus right now, and LSU does.
Well, and you also have
two reasons.
Does LSU want to take a group of 5 coach? It's been a long time since
and then there's also the whole stick your nose up at Tulane thing, which I don't necessarily agree with, but it's a big reason why they didn't get Billy Napier.
That is the point, is that there is kind of a certain way things are done at LSU that is different than it is at a lot of places. And so it almost feels like they're going to be looking at other candidates than a lot of these other openings. And so, I don't know. We shall see, but we'll leave the coaching talk at that for now. LSU does actually play a football game on Saturday, believe it or not, at 11:45 in Tiger Stadium against Arkansas. And we will talk about that right after this when we come back on the LSU Sports Insider.
You know how far I've gone, now I'm home again. I'm feeling more alive these days than I've ever been.
At the Baton Rouge Clinic, our sole focus is to provide exceptional health care for your entire family so that you can get back to doing what you love most. We are caring for generations.
You give me love.
Did they ask you to do the commercial too?
Yeah, but they just gave me one line.
Bet like a Caesar.
Like, we're going to sit here and we're going to tell them how Caesars Sportsbook is just so easy to use that you can watch and bet thousands of sports events, even some NFL games.
They'll probably show us betting on our favourite players and teams at all the Vegas hotspots too.
Like, we have time for that montage.
I told him I couldn't do it.
They couldn't afford me.
I think the biggest thing that separates us is our people. We have a really amazing staff that really care about their customers, really care about our product. At Jerry Lane Cadillac, we value trust and transparency above all else. We have a little bit of something for everyone, so whether it be the 2025 Escalade, any of the smaller crossover vehicles, the XT4, 5, and 6, we've also got a wide variety of new EVs, including the 2025 electric Escalade IQ. I think the product lineup right now is the best that it's ever been in Cadillac.
And welcome back to the LSU Sports Insider Podcast. Subscribe to the LSU Sports Insider on YouTube, and you can leave your comments, your questions, all of that stuff. That is where the best place to get your comments seen is on the YouTube channel. So check that out. Hit the like button while you're there. Subscribe, sign up for notifications, and all of that good stuff. LSU does play a game on Saturday, as mentioned. It kind of feels like the rest of the season has been canceled, but it has not been. There are 3 games remaining, starting with this home game, 11:45 a.m., against Arkansas on the SEC Network at Tiger Stadium. I checked SeatGeek last night. I believe you can get tickets for $7. So you want to bring the family out and see some SEC football? Very, very affordable. Much more than it is normally at Tiger Stadium.
And
so
you can get home early.
Yeah, that's right.
You don't have to be getting home super late.
Theoretically, well, the traffic won't be as bad. So I guess you can get home early.
Yeah. Also, no free ads. You can check out StubHub or one of those other places too. But yeah, tickets are cheap. I asked this question during the break, guys. Is this the least anticipated SEC game in Tiger Stadium since when?
Since Ogeron's last season. I'm trying to jog my memory here. You know, it got towards the end of that year, it got pretty bleak. I remember the last game he coached was A&M, and it was kind of like they just didn't have anything to play for. But that game was at night, and towards the end it was a close game, and LSU won on the touchdown to Jure Jenkins, last second touchdown. So I guess that had some excitement to it. But I can't remember this early a kickoff, with not only just LSU having an interim coach, but the other team having an interim coach as well. I'm going to look back at some point this weekend and try to figure out when's the last time LSU had an interim coach and was also facing an interim head coach. I'm trying to figure that out. It's just the combination of that plus the early kickoff and then the fact that the season has already gone off the rails makes it for a pretty unique setup on Saturday.
Hilarity could ensue. I mean, you just don't know what's going to go on in this game. And I don't know. Maybe it's worth watching just from that standpoint. It's Bobby Petrino is the interim coach for the Razorbacks. He took over for Sam Pittman a little more than a month ago, I believe. And the thing about Arkansas is that they have scored points. Bobby Petrino was the offensive coordinator. Of course, he famously was forced out as head coach. This is going back 15 to 20 years now. Forced out as the head coach at Arkansas. I don't even remember the exact year. After I'm going to get the details wrong. There was a motorcycle involved and a young female staffer involved. That's all I remember. I can't remember the details of it, but it was embarrassing. And yet Arkansas brought him back, and he is now their interim head coach. And the man can coach offense. Say what else you want about it. Say what else you will about him. He can coach offense. Arkansas cannot play defense. They've been in a lot of close games. They have lost every single one of them in conference play. And so it's a chance for LSU to get back in the win column, Koki. They're favored by 5.5 points. What would that mean to Frank Wilson, to the guys on the team, to the fan base? What would a win even mean here?
It means they're going to a bowl game. I was about to say it means nothing, but then I was like, oh yeah, no, they go to a bowl game. Because after the Alabama loss, that kind of ended any hope of Frank Wilson winning this job, and especially with how ugly that performance was. When it comes to the players, like I don't know. Most of these guys aren't going to be on the roster next season. So, like, what does a win or a loss mean really for their prospects heading in? I mean, individual. We can go individual to individual, and it means more
there are
for
some
certain
guys.
individuals.
Michael Van Buren, for instance, if he plays the lion's share of the snaps and they win, I think that means something to Michael Van Buren. But you're right. By and large, a lot of these guys are thinking more about where they're going to be playing next year or where they're going to go in the NFL draft than it is anything else.
Exactly. So, like, I don't know if like the result of this game really affects most of the players outside of some of the guys that I mentioned in my story this week about who are some players who have something to prove down the stretch. Gave 10 names. It was hard to get the 10, but found them.
TheAdvocate.com/LSU. Koki worked hard on that. Go read it.
Speaking of, you have a good story on Garrett Nussmeier that's up this morning. And I think we can say that this one means a little something to him. You know, it's last 3 games of the LSU career. You know, he's really been through the ringer the last 5 years with all the coaching changes and all the turmoil the program has been in, and he's really stuck with it. And now is his last chance to play, for the team that he chose to play for over and over again. So I think he wants to go out on a positive note. So maybe if he plays well, he can, keep Michael Van Buren on the sidelines and hope to improve his draft stock as much as he can in the last 3 games. So I think these games matter to him at least, because he's going to be out there and he's going to try to play and give it his all like he has all season.
Or it might not be the end of the world if he just sits the next 2 or 3 games and prepares for the All-Star circuit, the All-Pro circuit and all that sort of stuff.
Let's dig into the quarterbacks in just a second. I want to hit the injury report real quick first, because I think another guy who this would be meaningful for is Whit Weeks, and that's just because he hasn't had a chance to play a lot this year. This is LSU's senior linebacker, who kind of, when I think of the epitome of like bleeds purple and gold, it's Whit Weeks, and he hasn't had a chance to play as LSU's season has gone, kind of down the toilet here. Whit Weeks has had to watch from the sideline. So I think he would be a guy, if he can get back, who would really appreciate being out there. What's the update on that?
Frank Wilson said yesterday he was going to try to go through a practice and they were going to evaluate how he did through that practice yesterday. And so they did it, they evaluated, and they put him as questionable on the availability report that came out yesterday. So it seems like he's doing more than he did last week. We don't know if he's going to be able to play, though. I think they want to see if he's able to change directions and take contact on that gimpy ankle that he has. So it seems like a day-to-day thing. We'll have more tonight, Thursday night, when they put out the second availability report.
My question with Weeks is, what if he doesn't go to the NFL draft and tries to come back next season?
Possibility.
I think that's a real possibility. He's just a true junior. He's 1 more year of eligibility left. Given the money that LSU can give him to sort of entice him to come back to school.
Play with his brothers 1 more year.
He'll play with Zach for 1 more year. So I can see it, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, that's a possibility I honestly hadn't really considered, but he's in a situation, I guess, depending on draft feedback, where that's a possibility. And we'll see. It's a bone bruise, right?
Yeah.
So it's not something where he's going to necessarily re-injure anything.
No, but it's the same ankle that he injured in the Texas Bowl, and it kind of all stems back from that original injury. So, like, I think it's good to have a year of just saying, "Hey, I'm fully over this. Now look at me, NFL." Like, other than like go into the NFL with a gimpy ankle.
I'm just saying more to the point of whether he'll play this weekend is a pain management thing more than it is. We don't want to risk a re-injury, because I don't think that's on the table. Although maybe it is. Maybe that's why.
Or we don't want to risk. I don't want to risk my draft stock by playing
poorly.
Playing poorly out there, right? So
other injury news: Nick Anderson is out for the season. The wide receiver who hurt his knee.
Not necessarily. We don't know.
Oh, is that not okay?
He's out for this week.
I think I misread a headline then.
He's out for this week for sure. But Frank Wilson said it was not a significant injury that he suffered. It's going to be difficult for him to come back these last 2 games after. But it was, the initial fear was that it was something significant to his knee, but he avoided that. Most likely, we don't know exactly what it is, but he is out this week. But I suppose he has a chance to come back and play in these last 2 games of the bowl game.
All right, that injury report was brought to you by the Baton Rouge Clinic, your trusted healthcare provider in the heart of Baton Rouge. Whether you're in need of primary care specialist services or urgent care, the Baton Rouge Clinic has you covered with a team of dedicated and experienced professionals. Visit BatonRougeClinic.com to learn more or to schedule your appointment today. Caring for generations. That is the Baton Rouge Clinic. Okay, we mentioned the quarterbacks. We're going to kind of do an expedited preview of this game. The most interesting thing when LSU has the ball is clearly these quarterbacks. Reed, you mentioned the story Koki wrote. Everybody should go read it. There's two pulling factions here to me. One side is, like you said, maybe Garrett Nussmeier should just go focus on the Senior Bowl and that, those all-star games and get ready for the draft. And the other side says, another guy who bleeds purple and gold, he wants to play in Tiger Stadium again, and maybe he could show scouts something if he goes out there and plays well. Interesting situation for Nuss.
Yeah, absolutely. Because, I mean, what I kind of took away from the conversations I had with a couple of draft experts for the story that Reed referenced about Nussmeier that came out this morning on theadvocate.com that I wrote, my takeaway was the combine and the Senior Bowl and that stuff's gonna be very, very important for Nussmeier, because that stuff's probably more important than the games at this point, because he should try to separate who he is as a prospect from the situation that he's in right now, and he's not going to do that really through. It'd be nice if he can do that over the next three games and show that he can be that guy, but it's going to be very, very hard to do that. It's going to be much easier to do that when you're playing with other guys who are fighting for a draft spot, and you're in the Senior Bowl and you're not in the situation that you're in right now. So it's not a terrible idea, honestly, if he just sits the next 3 games and is benched, and then goes into the combine and goes into the Senior Bowl and just destroys it. If he does that, then he'll be fine, right? He'll still get picked in the 3rd or 4th round, and it'll be okay. Maybe even higher than that. Who knows? But if he doesn't. It is putting. You're right that it's putting a lot of pressure on those events. But honestly, I see a path where it actually gets worse for him if he stays on in the regular season, especially given the state of LSU's offensive line, the state of LSU's offense, the state of the program in general.
I get what you're saying. You certainly don't want to risk another injury, given the fact that you're playing behind this offensive line. That the possibility is always there, but I think at the same time, I do want to push back a little bit. Him just sitting, or even the perception of him just deciding to sit out these last 3 games could really hurt, his draft stock, because I don't think NFL teams want to, look at a quarterback and be like, hey, did you quit on your team? Did you fight through the adversity? Did you play the last 3 games? As the leader, were you out there or were you on the sideline? So I think it can only do good, for the most part, for him for suiting up and playing and just putting as much film on there just to show scouts something, that he is still the quarterback he was last year, and that he was really hurt by the circumstances of this terrible LSU season and this terrible LSU offense and all the dysfunction there was around him. Because I think if he can just find anything, make some big throws in these last 3 games, then it doesn't take much for NFL teams to start talking themselves back into him after all this season.
I mean, that's a fair point, but at the same time, NFL teams already know about his character. They already believe that he's he earned the number 18, and they know what that means. He's already had a high grade in the scouting community in terms of his off the field, personal attributes and his abilities as a leader. But I'm just worried that the more that he shows on tape, the worse that's going to get for him as a player on tape. The on the field stuff is what I'm worried about, not as much as the off the field stuff, which sounds weird, but I think in this situation, he needs to get divorced from whatever the heck's going on here. And just personally, I think the sooner that happens, the better off he is.
Yeah. Maybe so. I will say that if you're looking at putting film together, the defenses that LSU will face these next 2 weeks are certainly softer than what he has faced.
That's a great point.
In his past few games, and so maybe you can put together a couple of good games worth of film. The other half of the equation is Michael Van Buren. Frank Wilson said this week that Nussmeier would start, but both quarterbacks would play, similar to what we saw in Tuscaloosa last week. What does this mean for Michael Van Buren, and what are your expectations for him?
So he's going to burn the red shirt. That's what Frank Wilson said, and he's willing to do that. And, that's commendable for him. It's a very selfless decision. It's, good. It's a good quarterback leadership kind of decision. But from a practical standpoint, it's just like if I'm Michael Van Buren, I'm trying to figure out why he would want to waste his eligibility on this terrible LSU season when he can use it, 2028 when he can play and he can start somewhere, whether it's at LSU or whether it's somewhere else. These last 3 games, putting him behind this offensive line and this bad offense, I just don't understand the upside of him putting himself at risk there when the downside is losing this important eligibility that you have, and then that you can use later on. So I'm a little confused as to why, he would be willing to burn that red shirt.
I agree with you completely, Reed. I think him burning his red shirt on this team in this situation is just...
Especially if he's not getting full games, right? Like if he's only coming in the second half or something.
And he's not going to look any... It's going to be very hard. It's not impossible for him to look in this situation, but it's going to be very, very hard to look good in this situation given the situation, right? Like, given the offensive line, given the way the receivers are playing, given the way everyone's playing and performing.
Arkansas's defense is really bad.
That's true. That's true. But,
it's a pillow fight out there, but...
LSU scored 23 on Louisiana Tech. What makes us think they're going to score 35 points in this game suddenly?
But it just, maybe he wants to put as much film out there, for other schools if he's planning on hitting the portal again. Maybe he wants to show that he can be the LSU starter next year. Maybe he wants to use these opportunities to do so. But I just think it's the more prudent decision to take the red shirt. I'm not exactly sure what he's saying behind the scenes or how they're approaching it, but if I'm Frank Wilson, I'm kind of trying to do what's in his best interest and trying to save him from himself, because it is a really selfless decision to be willing to burn that red shirt. But, in this situation, it's probably, I'm not sure how it is in his best interest long term in terms of his career in order to waste it on this terrible season.
And you can still play in the bowl game and play in this game and play in 2 of the 4 games and get those reps in while maintaining the red shirt, because the bowl game doesn't count against the red shirt anymore. So what's the point of playing all 3 games? There's none.
Well, and maybe he won't. Maybe when it comes down to it, if he plays in these next 2, LSU will keep him out against Oklahoma. Maybe the conversation will shift.
But if the bowl game doesn't count, but if he plays in the Western Kentucky game, then it would count. Does that make sense?
I thought he needed to play in all 3 to burn.
He's at 3 already.
Okay, so
he's already at 3.
If he plays
this game, it'll be 4, and then that'll be it, and then he can't play again for the rest of the regular season if he wants to maintain the red shirt.
So it is awkward. It's by far the most interesting thing about LSU's offense. Real quick, we'll flip it around. When Arkansas has the ball, this is where the Razorbacks have excelled. The Petrino offense is like lots of misdirection and eye candy, things like that. Combine that with a dangerous mobile quarterback in Taylor Green. This unit is top 20 in both passing and rushing in the nation. They are, I believe, 8th in the nation in total offense at 480 some odd yards per game. And even if you just filter by SEC games, they are 2nd in the SEC behind Tennessee in 480 yards per game. So they've done it against bad defenses. They've done it against good defenses. And I do wonder, because defense more so than offense is about effort, possibly over execution, where the heads are of some of these key defenders for LSU makes you worry a little bit.
It's a really bad matchup. Everything you mentioned there, the misdirection, the motion, the fact that Arkansas has a mobile quarterback who's going to play. He's not on the availability report. He has some kind of injury that he's been battling the past couple of weeks, but he will be out there, Taylor Green. And he's the type of quarterback that has burned the LSU defense the past 2 seasons. Jalen Milroe, Marcel Reed, Diego Pavia, Lenora Sellers, all these guys have run against LSU's defense, and because that's what the LSU defense is vulnerable to. So I would not be shocked if Arkansas has another performance where they put up at least 30 points, on this LSU defense, and it kind of, I don't know if it can turn into a shootout, because I don't know if LSU's offense can keep up, but I definitely envision a scenario where Arkansas, the Arkansas offense looks about as good as the A&M offense looked in Tiger Stadium. Just because they're that good. It's a legit good offense, one of the best offenses in the country. Now LSU's going to have a lot of trouble stopping it, Koki.
I'm going to keep this simple, and there are 3 games where LSU's defense has struggled, right? It's Vanderbilt, it's Ole Miss, and it's Texas A&M. In all 3 of those games, those those three teams all have something in common. One, they can run the ball traditionally, and two, they have mobile quarterbacks.
Yes.
Arkansas has both those things with major check marks. So, and that's very hard to defend. I'm not saying that like they should easily be able to defend that, but at the same time, like Arkansas has the perfect recipe to put up at least 30 points in this game. And if they do so, I can't see. I'm spoiling my pick right here, but like I can't see a world where LSU gets the 30, even against this Arkansas defense. That's my problem. Like if Arkansas was missing one of those two things, then I'm like, okay, we're gonna have a good game here. But I think Arkansas is going to score. I have trouble seeing LSU's defense making stops for the reason that Zach pointed out, which is a motivational factor, and because Arkansas has the perfect offense to counteract this LSU defense.
You just stepped on your pick. You just
well, we're about to go there anyway, but I do like this is interesting to me from the standpoint of Blake Baker, who is kind of the major holdover from Brian Kelly's staff, and who may be courting head coaching offers of his own this offseason, who may be, a candidate to be held over as the defensive coordinator at LSU under the new regime if he doesn't get a head coaching offer. I mean, we don't know what Blake Baker's future holds. If he could motivate this defense to play a good game in this situation, that would be a major feather in his cap.
And if he can adapt and adjust and tailor this defense and show improvement against mobile quarterbacks and show that they can make the changes necessary to stop one of these guys.
How many times have we said that now over the past 2
years?
But if they like their defenses.
A&M's offense has done that to basically everybody. I think that they struggled against Auburn. Vandy and Diego Pavia have done that to everybody. So I'm not
everybody.
Like I'm not going to sit there and be like, oh, this is this is a bad look for Blake Baker. But I do agree that if he could get it done, that would be impressive to me.
I don't want to say it's a bad look for Blake Baker because, of course, as you said, like these three offenses that I talked about are all very good offenses. They're all top 15 offenses in the country. But again, at the same time, like Arkansas is a top 15 offense in the country, at least, probably top 10. And like, there's nothing I've seen from a Blake Baker defense in the last 2 seasons, let alone this year, that would suggest that they're going to shut him down this game.
Okay, well, let's get into our picks. LSU versus Arkansas. What does it matter? I don't know, but we're going to make picks.
Why are you even listening to the podcast?
If you would like to make a pick and you are close on your pick,
that's not what I'm saying.
We'll shout you out next week. Okay, but we'll do more coaching search talk too. So if that's what you're into, we'll definitely do that. I do think this game, for the reasons we mentioned, is fascinating to watch. Who ultimately wins is what I'm saying. What does it matter? Like that part, I don't know. I mean, Arkansas doesn't have an SEC win. I'm sure they'd like to get that. I'm sure Frank Wilson would like to win a game. There are probably LSU players who would like to win a game. Go out Tiger Stadium with a couple of wins here against Arkansas, and then next week against Western Kentucky. But ultimately, in a sport where, more so than any other sport, because you only play 12 games, you're only guaranteed 12 games a year, the wins and losses matter so much more. This one just doesn't feel like it does. But having said that, predictions, Koki, go for it.
Arkansas 35, LSU 17.
It would have been hilarious if you had picked LSU after everything you said, by the way.
No. I think I spoiled my pick. I didn't spoil the margin of victory. That was the
points.
thing.
You
that
kind of
was
hinted at it, though.
Boy, how empty would Tiger Stadium be in the fourth quarter if it was an 18-point Arkansas lead?
How far they have fallen. Koki is picking them to lose by 3 scores to an Arkansas team that fired their coach a month.
And they're winless in SEC play. But here's the thing. 1, the matchup is terrible. 2, like, I don't know where LSU's heads are at in this game, especially LSU. I mean, Arkansas has at least been in this headspace for a while. And 3, like, Arkansas is too good to go winless in conference play, right? And this offense is really good. I've been a fan of their offense for the whole season. It's just the defense and their ability to make mistakes. But I mean, LSU's right there with them with the mistakes. So I don't know.
I almost don't even know where to start. This is the first time all year where I've just been like, I have no idea what's going to happen on Saturday. You can tell me anything could happen, and I'd be like, sure, yeah, that sounds about right. I don't know. My first instinct was to say, okay, it's probably going to be a shootout. But then I'm thinking, wait a second, can LSU's offense really find itself in a shootout with with Arkansas. So I'm like, okay, Arkansas's defense isn't very good, but Arkansas's offense, I think, is the best unit out of all the units that will be on the field on Saturday. So I'll take Arkansas winning a closer game than what Koki has. I say 35-27. That would be a season high for LSU against an FBS team.
You think they're going to get the 27?
Arkansas's defense isn't very good.
That's true.
Look, that's what I'm
but
looking.
LSU doesn't know who's playing at quarterback.
LSU hasn't gotten to 27. Arkansas hasn't held anybody below 30 except for Alabama A&M and Arkansas State at the beginning of the year. So their last 8 games, I guess, they have allowed 41, 32, 56, 34, 45, 33 to Auburn, who also doesn't have an offense, and 38. So can LSU score 30? Yes, they can. It doesn't mean that they will, but if there's anybody who will allow it, it's this Arkansas defense. So I've got LSU winning. I got a 31-24. I guess I still feel like there's a little bit of motivation left in there. I don't think that all goes away with a loss to Alabama. I think LSU played hard at times in that game last week. Is this a good team? Not really, but it's still a better team than Arkansas. You asked the question, could Arkansas go winless in the SEC? Hell yes, they could.
I disagree. I think their offense is too good for them. They have the best unit between these two teams.
They have this game. They have at Texas and they're home against Missouri. They could win one of those games. They could even win 2 of those games. Probably. I don't think they're winning at Texas.
2 of those games. No,
but I don't. I could see them.
If they're going to win a game,
0-3.
this is the game. Right, because Missouri's too well put together. And Texas is too much to play
Missouri
for.
And a third-string quarterback. Arkansas have a chance in that game as well. But
I mean, maybe
they are bad enough to go winless in the SEC. They absolutely. Yes. They lost at home to Mississippi State. Okay. They gave up 33 points to Auburn.
Mississippi State's been close to everybody, at least. All right, Mississippi State's okay.
That's true.
And who in the world are they going to hire? You talk about who's LSU going to hire. Who are they going to hire?
No, not Red Lashley anymore. Bobby Petrino.
The betting favorite there is Ryan Silverfield from Memphis, which makes sense.
So they have a more natural fit than even LSU does because of Silverfield.
Yeah.
I feel like.
But you're right. It's 2 interim coaches.
Unless LSU hires Silverfield, which I actually wouldn't totally rule out either.
It's two programs who have lost their way, and we will be there. We're going to do a post-game show for this. So
Are we? Okay.
I actually think there's going to be interesting things to talk about in this post-game show. It might be our last post-game show of the year, but between the quarterback situation and how the defense plays, I actually think there will be. And does the bottom completely fall out on LSU? It's worth talking about that if your prediction comes true, Koki. Or does LSU buck up and get a win and get bowl eligible? And then I think that's worth talking about too. So
we could do one after Oklahoma because I think that's when the coaching search is going to start heating up. There's gonna be
that won't be a post-game show. It'll be a coaching search special.
We're behind the scenes right now of our show planning on the show. Open the curtain.
All right. Well, we are going to call it for today. That is the LSU Insider Podcast. Our producer was Molly Ballinger. He's Koki Riley. Reed Darcy. I'm Zach Ewing. And we will see you after the game on Saturday.